going on, fellas? This is Mike D, Mr. Double Down on You, with another episode of Black Fathers Now. And literally, I have a brother who is making waves, who's doing things. He's impacting lives. He's impacting families, but he's also really devoted his life to impact brothers. And I have none other than my man, Calvin Mann. Now, Calvin is a Detroit native. He's a husband, he's a father, but he's also the creator of Encourage Me, I'm Young, Inc., as well as Good Fathers Only, which is now a nonprofit. And again, like I said, the brother's based out of Detroit. He's been doing this work for decades. He's impacting lives, impacting families. And I'm really excited to jump into his journey, dive into who he is, but then also to share who he is with the Black Fathers Now family. So fellas and ladies listening too, because y'all like to tune in to what we talking about, let's welcome my man, Calvin Mann. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing good, Mike. How about yourself?
Man, I cannot complain, brother. One, like we mentioned before we got started, one moment at a time, no faster, no slower. That's
Right.
how I'm living it.
Yeah. You know it's coming.
No, man, come on, dude. Look, if it hadn't happened already, it's coming. So therefore, one moment at a time, so I can prepare.
Yes, sir.
Dig that, man. So, before we jump into your dynamic journey, man, I always have the brothers give shout outs. A lot of times people do shout outs at the end. On Black Fathers Now, we put shout outs in the beginning because who are we without our village? It takes a village to raise a child, but every strong brother, every person that's making an impact in the world also has a village of support around them as well. So let's put them out front, give them some love, and then we'll jump into your journey, brother.
Wow. Hey, brother, we'll be here. We'll spend a half hour on the shout outs, brother.
Man, come on with it. Look, it's your story.
First, I have to shout out my kids for
Mhm.
allowing me to walk this purpose and kind of impact their lives differently, allow them. So my daughter, Dominique, my son, Cameron, my son, Calvin, and my son, Keith, we've all been through, man, my story is crazy, but it's been through a number of issues and things, and they have still loved me through those obstacles and journeys. Then I would have to say my man, Big Will, and my brother, Cornell, Raheem Anderson, Zach Hart, Dr. Euro Hill. These guys have been impactful. Then I would have to say Heather Miller, my wife, Crystal Gunn, Tamika Gaines, Stacy Robinson. Man, there's so many people that impacted me in my circle. Clarence Barber, Victor, my mentors, couldn't do it without them. The great mentoring we do. So Dwan Carlton, Victor Baez, my cousin Brian Morgan, Clarence Barber, and Dave Patterson. Then the fathers from Good Fathers Only as well. The group members, Melvin DeCares, Kim Blanks Harrell, my board. Hey, it could go on. Jamie, Angela, Prince, Lawrence Jackson, Bob Whitey. They have been impactful, right? And have allowed me to continue to go. My middle school coach, Evan Lato, who literally taught me integrity as a young man in the 7th grade by having to, if you want to be on this team, this is what you have to do. My Uncle Don, McNeil, and and all of my former basketball players some who have said thank you, and those who have said thank you with their lives. It really goes on. I think my little brother Cornell and Zach and Raheem, they have been my mentors. they have made sure that I stayed grounded.
Mm.
Made sure that as I always tell others, words, deeds, and actions line up. They have made sure I stayed in that area. They have seen me go from divorce and despair to full blown leader, understanding
Mm.
what that means to be a leader and supporting me in and guiding me. My biggest shout out would go to Jim Curry Sr., who has passed away, who was my godfather,
Mm.
who who gave me a whistle and started my journey.
Gave you a whistle and started your journey.
He gave me a whistle. I was on the path of unrighteousness
Mm-hmm.
in the streets. And one day I saw a friend free base and I walked to the recreation and he opened up the door. He gave me a whistle. He said, I said, man, I don't want to live my life like this. He was in the office. I had no idea what was going on in the gym. And he grabbed me, went to the cabinet, put a whistle around my neck, opened up the door. He said, now you coach them. And it
Mm.
was a girls team and a boys team in the gym. And that was the beginning of me ever coaching. And what's crazy is I did everything opposite of what was coached on me.
Wow. You did everything opposite that was coached on you.
Whatever whatever my high school coach did with me, I did the opposite with the kids. I knew life was coming.
Mm.
So
So what
I'm
was different? So what was different? So you said the way that your coach coached you, you
yeah,
coached the complete opposite. How
yeah.
was it that you were coached, and what did opposite look like for
I was
them?
sport coached. I wasn't taught anything. I was it was nepotism. I was placed in a position of um, some say favoritism. I
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't say so much racism as I would say favoritism because the dynamics. The family of somebody coming up, and
Mm-hmm.
all the opportunity, just every chance you got to smash a person's dream,
Mm-hmm.
and um, it was my brother Big Will, my boy Big Will, who told me I had all of this even in middle school. He said people didn't know how to appreciate and see it on you. And it was because of what you went through in high school, where eventually the second half of my high school basketball career, I had hurt my ankle. My dream was gone. And I was in a mindset of rage.
Mm.
And I went in the locker room and I told my uncle, I got to let it go. And I got another opportunity after high school because of a friend of mine, Ty Grizel, who is now has been a force in helping us get money to build our empowerment center for the boys and fathers.
Mm.
And we went to a Christian college and bad advice, the whole nine. I got kicked out,
Mm.
and it was funny. Another thing that impacted my life was while I was at the Christian college, I went and worked Special Olympics,
Mm-hmm.
and Mary Brown was her name. And I went and worked Special Olympics. I cried the whole day. I just was blown away, and I think that impacted me as well. And then again, once I got kicked out, I couldn't go back, couldn't go to him because I didn't want to go home, brother.
Not at all. Come on.
You
Yeah.
got when it's a bunch of us. It was 7 of us at the time
Mm-hmm.
total. Um, you don't want to go back in the house where your big brothers and everybody is at, and so I didn't even say I was kicked out. I literally went, got me a loan, bought me a little car, and I moved back into the area for where my mom and my brothers were staying, but I couldn't be in that house like that, you
Mm.
know. So it was after a while, my mom, she found out I wasn't in school, and I remember I got my earrings and I covered up one because she wasn't big. And my
Uh-huh.
mom wasn't big on earrings. And I picked her up one day in the car and I got the little rag because I had 2 earrings at the time and I had the little rag on me and I'm driving. And she was like, boy, take that rag off your head. I know you got 2 earrings. I said, yeah.
Look, mama always knows, right?
Yep. But take that earring out your right ear. You
Mm-hmm.
ain't nobody. You know, back then they would call you a sissy.
Uh-huh.
Nobody sissy. Take that earring out your ear.
You know, it's funny you say that. I remember because when I first I got my left ear pierced when I was a senior in high school. And then when I went to college, you know, I got the other one done. So I had both of them. And I remember it's funny you say that. When I came home and one of my grandmothers, she looked at me, she turned my head from side to side, and she said, you know, I was okay with you having one earring, but now you have a pair of earrings. You're a man. You don't have a pair of earrings. And it was just the funniest. It literally jogged my memory from when you said that. I remember her vividly saying men don't wear a pair of earrings. And so, that was funny to me, man.
Hey, man. Hey, listen. It's funny because, you know what? She was the second oldest. Her brother, my mom's brother, had passed at birth.
Mm-hmm.
She was the second oldest of 11.
Wow.
So her skill level on parenting
Mm-hmm.
was way different. And not that she was perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Because at one point she told us we couldn't see our father.
Mm.
You know what I mean? So it wasn't that she was perfect. And, you know, some would see it that way. But me, I'm, you know, being in the middle, I had access to both.
Mm-hmm.
And I fought. And I believe that's what this is all about, the whole fatherhood and encouragement. I fought to be with my father.
Hold on. You said you fought to be with your father.
Yes. I took butt whoopings. I took ridicule. I fought to be with my father.
What now what gave you as a young man the inspiration to fight to be with your father? Usually it's the other way around. It's father has to fight to be with the child, or if there's a dynamic with mother and father.
Back then he did.
Okay.
You know?
But what gave you that inspiration? What was it about that yearning of you wanting to be with your father that caused you to have the inspiration to say, I want to fight to be with my father, to spend time with my father?
Well, I really think the dynamic is when, I think it's an area when the two parents split,
Mm-hmm.
that you have a choice.
Mm-hmm.
And I think condition-wise, at that time, we weren't conditioned media-wise
Mm-hmm.
to have to choose the mother.
Mm-hmm.
We wasn't told that this
Dad was
is
an option.
Yeah. Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I heard her say you can't go with your father, the phone rang. You know, back in, you pick up the phone, hello, yeah, this is your dad. Hey, what's up, dad? Right? You know,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm up. Meet me, come through the alley, meet me, get in the car, I'm gonna go get y'all something to eat.
Mm-hmm.
So I creep out the back door, go get in the car, the big glass gremlin. And we drive to the first black McDonald's on 8 Mile in Woodingham.
Mm-hmm.
And he buy all his food and let me back off. And I creeped into the back door and I came up the steps. And where you get that food? And I was like, Dad. And she slapped me. And I fell down the steps. All the food went down the steps. And that left a lasting impression in my life.
Mm.
And so from that point, whenever my dad was mentioned or I had an opportunity, I was going.
Interesting.
Right. And in that process, so it's funny that we're having this conversation because in that process comes the things that I deal with right now.
Mm-hmm.
So I used to pack my little suitcase, run away from home. I want to go. If I can't be with my dad, I'm going to pack my suitcase. And you talking about trauma, right? So I'm packing my suitcase. But got the greatest brothers and sisters. Like literally, we had a ball. Right. For me, it just was about I'm done. I'm beat it. I'm leaving. I'm running away. So after that, that third attempt and got that butt whooping, I decided that running away was no longer an option.
But you said something that's interesting because a lot of people typically, once they're met with resistance, they realize, okay, that's the end. I'm not going there anymore. Whereas with you, you were met with resistance and it made you want more. Right.
Yeah.
It's kind of like when somebody, with kids, you tell them, don't touch the stove. Don't touch the stove. When you turn your back, what are they over there trying to do? Touch the
Touch
stove.
stuff.
You know
Yep.
what I'm saying? And so to your point, it sounded like that was, like you mentioned the encounter with your mom when you came up with the McDonald's bags, that almost fired you up to say like, well, I want to go spend more time now. There's something there that's driving me in that direction because you're trying to keep me from it.
Yep. Yep. So, and in that process, you don't need it, right? And
Mm-hmm.
you didn't need it. And when I hit middle school, right? So we moved, and I hit middle school. Now in middle school, all my talents is on deck. I'm this overweight kid. Um, I can play basketball, right? As long as I was in the city, people made fun of me. I moved to the suburbs. I could play a little basketball, but I was very overweight, and I played football, and my dad was there.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I share this all the time. My dad came to more of my games than my mom.
Wow.
Once I hit high school and we were playing a rink team, my dad visited, and my mom was sitting in the stands, and my dad came. And I'm in the layup line. I'm about to show out. I'm about to do my thing, Mike.
Mm-hmm.
And was always leading though, but never was chosen.
Mm.
Was always leading. My classmates, people always said when it was parties, I would walk people home to protect them. Was always leading, to get in this position. People don't like the charisma, the swag or whatever, because I'm very confident. I'm a very confident person.
Mm-hmm.
Even in my inconfidence, I'm very confident. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? So,
Mm-hmm.
and I think sometimes that could rub a person the wrong way because you are a confident person. When you confident,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people will see it as arrogance or whatever because they don't have.
They can't deal with that energy. That's all it is. Yeah.
Period.
Mm-hmm.
And so, same thing. I had control of the basketball team that the coach couldn't handle.
Mm.
He couldn't get the team to play the way I could get them to play. And so that was part of it. So that was all part of who I was.
Mm.
Football, I could do these things, but nepotism, racism, manipulation, all that's at the table, right?
Mm.
And we had probably one of the greatest talented in my high school, probably the most talent ever. But it
Mm-hmm.
was always a little something with me or the black kids or whatever the case may be. And we were always wise enough to see that what we was up against.
Mm.
And so with this game, my dad left at halftime. I went in a tank. But these are all the things that you go through, right? Some people's story is different.
Mm-hmm.
They became ultimately successful because they didn't have their father, right? And the mother did this, and filled in. But you never heard what dad's story was.
Mm,
Never
that's
heard.
that's a powerful point right there, right? Especially when there's separation or,
Yep.
Unfortunately when, families aren't together and, it's basically one word against the other word. And if you only have one word in your ear, you never get the full understanding of the other perspective because, and before we got started, we talked about the concept of the iceberg. You know what I'm
Yep.
saying? Because when you think about an iceberg, only 10 to 20% of the mass is seen. 80 to 90% of the mass is beneath the surface. And I think as far as stories are concerned, perspectives, the real truth, usually that's what's up. Most people just see a little bit and they think that's it. But there's a lot to that. There's a backstory.
It's a backstory. And what we found in our research, more and more and more and more, men don't just walk away.
Mm.
Men don't
Wow.
just walk away. We got to really, that's why we did Daddy Talk and that whole dynamic, because getting the fatherhood story is a perspective that a lot of us fear.
Mm.
People fear to hear the father say, well, she did this, she did that, she did this. I remember I was being interviewed, and this is real. I was being interviewed, and she was writing for the local newspaper, Detroit Free Press. And I was asked, can we have a conversation about fatherhood that doesn't shine a negative light on motherhood?
Ooh. Mm.
right? And I say,
Mhm.
well, can we have a positive conversation about motherhood that doesn't shine a light on negative fatherhood?
Mm.
The article never got published.
Wow.
She never even mentioned me. She mentioned the dude that I brought with me that was from out of town. She never even mentioned.
Because but you hit on it, and because you actually mentioned it earlier when you were talking about what's normalized in society,
Yes,
right?
sir.
And those narratives get created, and again, we have to be honest, there are some individuals who are not good individuals, right?
Right.
But the reality is that doesn't tell the whole story, and that's not everybody, right? And so there's always, two to tango in a lot of instances. Again, we don't give a pass to people who have nefarious issues and got things going on and they're doing the wrong stuff. We're not giving a pass to that. But for everybody else, let's hear the whole story, because a lot of times we do get placed in a bad light. And I'll tell you what's interesting, even now, the dynamic, if you kind of look at social media, there's a lot of conversation on the man versus the woman, and the black women are not feeling supported by black men, and black men are not this.
Yep.
I mean, it starts this whole gender war thing,
Yep.
which I think comes from norms that are out there or perspectives that are out there, but then also not really telling the full story.
It is the conditioning
Yes.
that we have completely ignored in the submitting. We have men and women lanes,
Mm-hmm.
and we have women in men's lanes,
Ooh, you're going deep, brother. Mm-hmm.
right? And so in that process, right, um, there is no place, right, that either should be able to go without the other, right? Except for the fact that as soon as men decide to congregate, automatically we have to be subject to allowing women to be a part of what we do. That is part of the conditioning.
Mm.
They can have all these things, but if a man pursues, for instance, how it's funny how everyone is against the gender thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So we're against the gender. So you see the person they running track, right? So transgender switches over and runs track and wins. Well, everybody said that's not fair, but everyone's trying to get into this man lane.
Mm.
Unfair. I'm trying to be a professional. One day I want to be a professional football player with where the men, right? One day I want to be a professional basketball player with the men, because the men, they got this, they got that. Well, you don't see men jumping into those lanes, right? So we have this whole perspective around what is really right and what is really wrong,
Mm.
but men need to be in their spaces,
Mm.
fix each other, right? We need to be holding each other accountable without that feminine voice, right? With
Mm.
the whole perspective that, Mike, come on, man, you really don't need to do that. Here's some other areas where you can win it,
Mm.
right? And that's what our boys need,
Mm.
right? So if a boy, he sits in class and we justify, oh yeah, we say, what's the word? It take a woman can't raise a man to be a man, right? And
Mm-hmm.
how many times have you seen, oh, yes, we can, right?
Mm-hmm.
I can raise my son to be a man. Okay. But if you're raising this son to be a man, what is he losing if it's
Mm.
just, what does he gain if both put an input
Mm.
to the making of our children? So we're walking out here partially when we don't have the input. That's why it's good fathers only. Kids need both parents. When we don't have that input from the biological father, which is a whole nother conversation, because if we start DNA testing at birth, we'll cut out a lot of issues
Mm.
where we don't understand uh, what's wrong with my son. Man, one of my fathers was like, Cal, he can't be my son.
Mm.
Turns out, guess what? But he raised him.
Wow.
So now he's teaching him his way again, right? Now, I done had him since he was 2, but now I got to really teach him this way as a man. But I find out he really not my son.
Mm. Not by biological son.
Not my biological son.
Mm.
Right. And so you can question these things, right? And that's just part of the dynamic of why we go silent.
Mm.
See, we think a man is not in his kid's life just because of he walked away. He wasn't no good. He didn't have a job. Sometimes it's because he recognized just spiritually, this not my kid. You've been lying to me. And gratefully, he may have walked away, got another family, and been super to somebody else's kid, right? And we'll say, oh my God, like he left his own kids, but you didn't see your dynamic because you're not accountable to your dynamic.
Mm.
We have to be accountable, just like men have to be accountable to his point of the child, mothers do too. When we co-parent or when we, right, it's a communication thing. We still can be successful and raise our child to be successful outside of all the drama and the trauma. The problem is that somebody wants to always be the main parent, right? Because I can validate you on Mother's Day, even if you're a deadbeat mom.
Mm.
You still gonna get flowers. You still gonna get balloons, cake, ice cream, gifts, and you're probably the worst ever. But that father, which is the reason why we started Good Fathers Only, he doesn't validate himself.
Mm.
He doesn't say he's a good father. He tempers himself. Oh, just give me I just want to be alone. Right? When you're this stupid value, you're hugely valuable to your children, your community, your house, your like you are Superman. Like you are the reason. You are this hero, right? You're named after the Most High. Your Father,
Mm.
which you're named after the Most. Our Father, which art in heaven,
Mm-hmm.
right? So your title to you is Father, which comes with all of these miraculous miracle things bent into you intrinsically that you bring to the table. Your presence alone is powerful. It is the reason why she'll say, I don't understand why they listen to you, but they don't listen to me. And we'll fight you for that listen.
Mm.
You see, there's a book called Taken in Custody by Stephen Baskerville. Taken into custody. They did a research. When the father takes the child to school, the kid gets out the car, grabs his stuff, goes into school. When the mother walks the child into the school, all the way into the class, the whole nine, the kid gives the mother what she expects: tears,
Mm.
falling out, the whole nine. This was just a study where they just watched men, right? And so that's just one dynamic that plays out. So what's wrong with our boys? Now we get into what's wrong with our boys.
Mm.
If you have a high level of absent father teism,
Mm-hmm.
you have emotional boys, emotional men, emotional husbands, emotional fathers. So everything is reactionary.
Mm.
We don't realize how we speak, right? Dr. Miles Monroe is, man, one of my favorite orators, pastors. Like, it's gonna be hard for somebody to get in
Mm-hmm.
after Dr. Miles Monroe. It's gonna be hard for you to convince me of anything else, right? By taking in the information, it has enhanced me. There's another book, Boy Crisis, by
Yep.
Dr. Warren Farrell,
Warren
right?
Farrell. Yes.
Yep,
Yep. You and I
yep,
talked about that.
yep, we talked about that, right? So there is a lot of information in there, and it's just that dynamic of how powerful fathers are.
You mentioned the concept of powerful fathers, and I'm a huge proponent of that as well. And a lot of times, what ends up happening though is we lose sight of the and we think it's an or, right? It's either mom or it's dad versus it's mom and dad. Because the reality is we have, we're divinely designed and uniquely designed with our emotional makeup, with, the way that we're physically built, to everything to come together and to both bring value in the lives of children. Right. And so, and you mentioned something earlier about when one tries to take on the role of both, it's basically you're subpar. It's kind of like if you run, you mentioned your support system and you run organizations, right? If you go from it being an organization with multiple folks doing different roles and different parts to, what, I'm going to do everything myself. I'm going to do everything from the rooter to the tutor. You're probably, as an organization, not going to operate at an optimal level because you're doing everything yourself. And I think a lot of times with moms and dads, even if, unfortunately they're not married or they're not in a relationship, if they're from a parenting perspective, if one or the other tries to take on everything themselves, there is going to be some level of deficit there. And I think that's where, if we're honest and we take our thoughts out of it and put the kids first and say, like, what's going to be best for this child, and you find a way, and you mentioned the word communication, communicate effectively, but then also have the right intention, we come to realize that even if mom and dad don't necessarily groove, they can groove together for the betterment of their children and find ways so that those value props are there so that mom or dad doesn't have to wear every hat. Now, again, shout out to single parents. I understand there are single parents who have done wonderful jobs, single dads and single moms who have done amazing jobs with kids. But I don't think anybody would say that that is the ultimate desire and or design in regards to, raising kids in an optimal situation.
Never. And again, kids need both parents. Waking up a society to understand that,
yes, is big.
Is big, right? Because there's always opposition. When you start posting negative or talking or sharing negative stats of what children look like without fathers, there is always contention as to, well, people bringing in their own personal scenarios.
And that's that, and that's the interesting perspective. When you start looking at, when stories come out, then everybody's, will come out, or a lot of people will come out and, well, I was all right, or, well, look at me, or look at my so-and-so, or look at my situation. And yes, you did, you literally succeeded. Kudos to you. I wish you the best. But the reality is we don't want that exception to then become the standard. And that's the to your point, I think that's where we really have to be mindful of. It's kind of like we talk about like like eating and all of that stuff. Well, my grandmama ate this, or my granddaddy smoked from the time he was 12 to the time he was 90 and he lived. Those are exceptions. You know what I'm saying? Let's not base our life on the exceptions. Let's really look at the design and what's optimal and shoot for that. Again, nobody's perfect, right? We, things don't work, things screw up, we make mistakes. I mean, we're imperfect, right? I made some earlier today. I'm gonna make some this evening. Real talk, you know what I'm saying? But we strive for what's optimal. And I think that's, when you start looking at targets, we strive for what's optimal, not for what's the exception.
Right. And so bringing that information to the table is literally pressing through millions of segments of what fatherhood really has meant to a lot of people. So here's what fatherhood means and what the kids look like without fatherhood. And here is me and you trying to highlight fatherhood to get through all that conditioning.
Absolutely.
So, that process of you awakening and saying, you know what, I don't want to do this by myself. I'm calling his dad, was dad, being judgment or being in control of someone else's household, right? It's always, I don't like what he does, right? But then you'll turn the child over to a stranger, a mentor, right? Someone else. The biological father literally knows what it is in his child, because if it's a boy, he's there. He's been there. If it's a girl, you've been there. Let's really cooperate, right? Because if it's a girl, I only know how to love her a certain way.
Mm.
But if it's a boy, you're going, oh, this is mine. I remember.
Mm-hmm.
Where was I at when I had them? These are all the things that make us super
Mm-hmm.
when we look at our children and we have a plan and we cultivate guidance in their life for them to be successful. Now,
Mm.
every person or every parent doesn't look at it that way.
Absolutely.
Some of us just look at it in a way that, I'm glad to be a parent and this, that. No, I've always looked at it, right? We use the term, I want my children to be better than me.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so how are they going to be better than you if we don't cultivate this change?
Mm.
If we don't guide them, if we
Well,
don't,
hold on. You said something there too, though. To be better than you, you also first have to have a baseline of where you are or who
well,
you are. And
come
see,
on,
that's even deeper because if you don't know yourself, how
yes,
can someone improve upon that? It's kind of like, how can, it's like you play video games and I want to beat the high score, right? Well, you first got to know what the high score is. You know
yeah.
what I'm saying? And so to your point, and I didn't mean to interrupt you there,
No,
but you
you're
were saying
good.
that
Good.
we had to pause there for a second because that's a component. If I want you to be, T.I. used to say, don't be like me, be better than me. You know what I'm saying? Like that's real. That you hear that across the board,
Right.
but we have to know where you are
Yeah.
for us to then strive for the next generation to be better than me. So if I want my kids to be better than me, where am I?
Right.
What is the baseline? And then we can work on improvement.
Yep. And how do I teach that?
Yes.
Which comes naturally to me.
Mm-hmm.
See, right? Society did that when they did that survey and they asked all the students, what kind of teacher would you really want? They said they wanted a black male teacher.
Mm.
Their black male teacher provided a certain, right? These are natural instincts, especially when you're a father. Reason why we use fathers, it takes 12 mentors to equal one father. So our mentoring program, we use fathers.
Woo, pause there. You said it takes 12 mentors to equal one father.
Yes. The
Talk to me.
biological
Talk
father still
talk
is
to me a little bit about that. Like literally, you can't gloss over that one, man, because I've
yeah,
never heard that
yeah,
laid out like that. Talk
yeah.
to us literally, dive into that a little bit, man.
Okay, so 12 mentors, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 12.
Mm-hmm.
So you get a 12 mentor. 12 mentors in the biological father is different
Mm.
because the biological father knows his biology. He knows the child,
Mm.
knows what's in it. He knows him so he can cultivate. So with that being said, where's the power at? We can get a mentor from anywhere, but if we get a father figure mentor, he will apply tools that he will apply to his own child.
Mm-hmm.
You see, which then takes the mentoring to a whole nother perspective.
Mm.
And so when I discovered that, I was like, wow. So here we go. We got 12 mentors. We throw them in there. It's not the same because you show up, Mike, you show up. Teachers, I remember I give you the best example I can give you. I had a presentation. I got called in to Henry Ford High School. The teacher liaison, she brought me over. She wanted me to come talk to the class. And part of that is she'll purchase Encourage Me I'm Young shirts,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I'll come in, the kids, with the shirts, the whole nine, the teacher's in the classroom. Wants me to talk to to kids. I begin the conversation instantly. The whole room is zeroed in. We have this great conversation. We move the needle. We get them to see what is in front of them, how to redirect the energy. Now, are you responsible for your brother or your sister? Why are you doing education and you not working with each other? Building that bond of continuity and community and brotherhood and sisterhood. No, you got to get it yourself. I said, that's the dynamic that prevents you from being brothers and sisters in life.
Mm.
So the conversation is it goes over very well. Each kid is standing up and sharing what they'd like for their parents to do and how they're going to go home and have this conversation with their parents and, everything. And the bell rings and the class is over with. And the teacher, he grabs me. He said, I've been teaching here 20 years. I've never seen anyone, any man have command of a classroom the way that you have command of this classroom.
Mm.
like I've never seen that. Right? And he said, what is it that's different about you? I said, if you teach them like they're your own children, this classroom would prosper.
Whoa, pause. If you teach them like they're your own children, this classroom would prosper. Dude,
Yes.
check this out. I'm a firm believer that concepts and principles transcend circumstances, right? If you teach them like they're your own children, this classroom will prosper.
Yes.
Like I mentioned, concepts and principles transcend circumstances. If you're a coach, if you coach them on your team like they're your own children, your team will prosper.
Yes.
Take it over to the next. Your organization that you're leading, if you lead them like they're your own children, the leadership in your organization will prosper. Like, I mean, there's something that I think about as a Black father, and it goes back to the whole concept of, it takes a village to raise a child, right? But then it also takes me back to growing up where, I grew up in Augusta, Georgia, right? And I can trace back 4 generations to the Augusta, Georgia area. So that being said, I had uncles and cousins and friends of families and whatever all over the place, all throughout Augusta, Georgia. And it was funny to the point where I could go places and I might not have known the people that were there, but they knew me. They knew that was, that was Earl and Maxine's grandson, or that was Maddie Leona and Jap's grandson, or that's so-and-so's nephew, and I don't know who they are. Their eyes were on me, right? Meaning that village was a part of who I was, whether I knew who they were or not, right? And so I was saying all of that to say, being, with the village to, it takes a village to raise a child. As a Black father, the way that I view kids, the way that I view community is that they're all mine.
Yep.
They're all mine. Like, I mean, I don't care if they biologically mine or not. If they a neighbor, they my kids right now. You ain't got to worry about them. If they in the yard, I got them, and I approach it that way. And I think that, to your point, is the secret sauce that leads to the level of impact that I can have with young people, or not even just young people, with others, because you might be my peer. I look at you like you my brother, or you're a little, an elder of mine. I look at you like you're my uncle, and I'm treating you that way. So therefore we have this connectivity that other people don't have, because I'm approaching you like your family, regardless.
So to expound on it, we got into our latest campaign, which is Smash Suicide.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Black boys are number 1, 5 to 12.
Wow.
Right?
5 to 12? Okay.
5 to 12. Yeah. White boys follow, Hispanics third, right? So Black boys 5 to 12, no one's there. We jump in and we're saying, through our method, which goes back to what you and I just talked about, right? How you are on your street with your children and the neighbor's children, they don't have to worry about that. That's an innate gift in you. Once you become a father, that cape, remember I told you, right? And one of my quotes on one of my shirts is, the day that the child is born, it hears the heart of the father becoming a hero. Right? And what happens is that once we snatch you out of the community,
that heartbeat's gone.
Not only that, but what happens? Chaos. See, you represents containment. This is under control. I snatch you out. War on drugs. You snatch all the men out the community, everything becomes what? Reactionary, feminine, the whole 9. Look at our boys, reactionary. We learned through Vietnam, coming through the 70s, the whole 9. You remove that, how easy it is for a brother to kill another brother, right? Because I have this anger from this conditioning of having absent males, men, right? And the men that are broken, right?
You said, because, when you quoted, when you were mentioning the book, Dr. Warren Farrell's The Boy Crisis, everything that you're talking about there, goes back to the thing that's so vivid in my mind after going through the book. And it was the whole concept that basically he ascribes every major issue in the world to dad deprived boys. Like
Yes.
if you literally, I mean, he broke down the statistics on, like terrorist groups like Al Qaeda and Al Shabaab and, whatever. He looked at Hitler Youth. He looked at, the KKK. And obviously we know like, the gang culture and everything. He was just like every last one of those entities or organizations were in essence fueled by dad deprived boys. Now that didn't mean necessarily dad absent. But they said dad deprived. So meaning
Yep.
those boys had limited, engagement or availability of fathers and father figures in their life. So therefore they were vulnerable.
Very.
Mm.
Which means I will listen. When I worked in the juvie,
Mm-hmm.
the boys would listen to the women that was in the juvie. The women could say whatever they wanted to say,
Mm-hmm.
cuss them out, the whole night. We think that's mothering.
Mm-hmm.
Boy, go sit your, and if you
Mm-hmm.
don't, right? And they go, I say, take a seat, brother. No, Mr. Man. No. What you mean? I just need you to have a seat, brother.
Mhm.
Just take a seat while we escort everybody in. We're going to talk. No, I ain't sitting down. Ain't no way. How you going to tell me? You disrespectful? Yeah, you going to tell me, Mr. Man? I said, I'll tell you what. I'm going to call Miss what's her name and have her come in here. And maybe after she tell you sit down, you'll sit down. I'm going to let you stand now. And so he paused. I said, yeah, a woman can tell you anything.
Mm.
But I just asked you to have a seat politely. She going to come in here and cuss you out. Then you're going to sit down because that's what you want. That's what you're accustomed to. You're not
Ooh.
accustomed to that respect. And someone is telling you, brother, take a seat. When I come back, we'll deal with your issue.
What I'm accustomed to. So you
What you
see,
are accustomed to.
See, dude, and that plays into a lot of different facets
Yes,
in the rearing of our young boys, our young men, because it's one of the things that I've come to realize. If your kids go to school, right, they go to elementary school, there's not a lot of male figures outside of maybe the principal in elementary schools, right?
yep.
And then you get into middle school, you have a little bit more. And then if you have men in education, they're primarily concentrated in high school, right? And so when I used to coach youth football, which, the middle school age group or whatever, a lot of times the guys that we would coach, and this is, 12 to 14-year-olds, they would buck. They would literally buck the system. But the realization that I came to for a lot of them, if they came from from a broken home or dad not in the mix, they're 12 to 13 years old. If they didn't grow up in a church or didn't have mentors or weren't part of big brothers, big sisters, and all of that stuff, I might have been the first real male authority figure that was checking them in their life. So they're 13 years old. So they looking at me and, at the time, I ain't the biggest brother in the world. So, they sizing me up like I'm one of their homeboys. And so you literally had to, resort to various tactics on the football field for them to understand that, look, I ain't your little boy. You know what I'm saying? But it took that at times for us to get to an understanding that there is an authority here. I do love you. I do care for you. I got your back, but you gonna doggone listen to what I'm saying as well. But that also came because you had 12, 13, 14 years in which you've never had that level of authority in your life on any level. And
And
so that became a challenge.
been told you was the man of the house at 7.
Mm. Yeah.
You the man of the house.
Mm.
So I add instant pressure
Mm-hmm.
into your life.
Mm.
You the man of the house. Right? And so now you're 24.
Mm.
You still the man of the house. No dreams, no drive, no desire, no growth. Some of them graduate from college, get into a system. Women tell them what to do. See, if we don't have balance,
That's big.
you need balance. This is why mentoring should not be undervalued.
Mm.
We undervalue mentoring. should not be undervalued. When a man who's a father, who's a brother, who sees the issue and can help your child, your investment should be in that mentor, not into Jordans, video games, or anything like that.
You know, check this out. You're dropping something here, and this actually kind of leads to, you know, the brother that was the link between us, Sean Dove, right? So Sean, I had him on the podcast about a year ago or so, and one of the things that he dropped on my on the episode was, he said, you know, when he consults or when he coaches leaders, he always says that leaders need to have a therapist, an executive coach, and a mentor. And he said, if you don't have those three things in place, you're going to struggle leading at the highest level. And so, to your point, you're talking about mentor for young boys. But the funny thing is, even we adult men need mentors. Me as a 40-year-old father and, you know, husband and father of a 9 and a 7-year-old, I need mentors. I need people that I can look to help guide me through my process, folks who have been where I'm going, to give me some guidance, some understanding, and different perspective.
Right. Well, and that's what my shout outs were.
That's it. I heard you. I loved it.
Right. You know what I mean? And like Zach, he'll say he's not my mentor. You know, Zach Hart is building one of the fastest insurance agencies in the country, right? And he's a contributor, a supporter of Encourage Me I'm Young, and big time, you know what I mean? And we've shared books, quotes, a number of things. But when I said, man, thanks for mentoring me, he's quick to say, no, you mentoring me, you know, you're older. I said, no, mentors come in all shapes, sizes.
Brother, check this out, fellas. I hope you paid attention to that.
Yeah.
Just because you're the elder doesn't mean that you can't be mentored by somebody half your age. Yes. Be open, because we can be experts in one aspect of life, but then we could be a complete novice or a basket case in another. Yep. Just because you're a G as a dad, you might need some help as a husband, or you might be great as a husband, but you need some help as a dad, or you could be a great businessman, but yet, you know, you got some issues on the personal finance front, or there's a lot of things. We got our gifting, but we've not been ordained with every gifting. You know what I'm saying? Some things we got to go get help on. You know what I mean?
Right. And so this is why kind of one of the reasons Good Fathers Only really is because I'm borrowing. I'm taking from every one of them fathers. When I see them put their fatherhood on display, I'm like, okay. Oh yeah, that was okay. That's something I didn't know. You know what I mean? So I'm learning from them. The reason why I wanted us to come together to celebrate our value, fatherhood, how valuable you are. But to get back to the suicide thing, suicide being in such young males, the answer is you, Mike. So the way we do and you know, you'll be able to go on the site later on the day, our ME way is to engage them. Which a lot of times men, we're not engaging. We don't talk to each other. We walk by, we say, what's up? We don't impart empathy. We still going by the motto, I'm cool, even when I'm busted. You know, I still got this wall up like I'm cool mode D and I'm great. And no, brother, here's someone you can talk to and learn from, right? Open yourself up to some humility, right? So engage them. When you see a young brother, his pants are sagging, he already knows your spirit is different. Your energy is different just by how you walk, just by how you carry yourself. And when you speak, they listen. So engage them. Hey, let me holler at you for a second, brother. What's really going on? That's it. Then once you engage them, empower them. That's our method. Empower them. Making sure hey man, you can do this. And then you finish them off with encouragement.
Engage, empower, and encourage.
That's how we've been able to navigate 16,000 youth.
Wow.
That's how we've been able to, we're in our mentoring program, we don't keep them. We teach
Mm.
them to fly. Isn't that what the Bible told us to do? Teach
Mm-hmm.
men to fly, right?
Mm.
We should teach them to fly, not hold them, hoard them.
Mm.
Teach men to fly, right?
Mm.
The other part in our mentoring program is the brotherhood.
Mm.
Each person comes with a peer. This is why our program will be national. This is why we'll have 10, 15, 20 cities. This is why, because our method. And then each kid gets to sell the apparel to build their own scholarship.
Mm.
So we've put that in 46 cities in 7 countries and growing,
Wow.
right? And so now we started the campaign to kick off the Smash Suicide campaign by you buy a shirt for a child or a person or someone who's struggling, and you hand them this gift of encouragement.
Mm.
And it is a reminder to the childhood in them. It is the reminder to the man. It's a reminder of the woman. It's a reminder to the childhood in them that never got the encouragement that you can be great.
Mm.
And so it's no wonder people don't know about us like that, because we were building. So we've been on Ron's House, season 4.
Mm-hmm.
YouTube it, you'll see it. We've been on the NFL Network, Larry Foote, you'll see it.
Mm.
Michigan State, 2000 Final Four run. Iowa State, Western Michigan. We feel like we were the ones who started what you now see in the NCAA were teams, because behind Michigan State going to the Final Four with our humble and hungry quote, and the NFL, the Lions going to the playoffs with Ndamukong Suh on CBS ran down, we're humble and hungry.
Mm.
All these people have blocked out instead of contributed into the movement.
Mm.
So we have to reignite them
Mm-hmm.
to get them to understand. We put that on you for your contribution. You have to contribute to the
Mm-hmm.
change. So with suicide being what it is, and it's the suicide in Black children under 13 is 2 times that the level of white kids under 13. Now suicide works. Black kids early, white kids later. So when the kids are high school, for Black kids, suicide tapers off. White kids, it increases.
Mm.
Where are the revenue?
Mm.
All you got to do is look. We're not working.
Mm.
So now you're talking Black boys. What do you see more than anything less of right now? We are been under attack. The Black boy is the most kicked out of from daycare to 12th grade and
Mm.
probably from college. He's the first kicked out. No one's kicked out more.
Mm.
That's on us as men, Black men. I don't have to, I owe nobody. You don't owe nobody no explanation about your Blackness and supporting your people and boasting about how you support Black. I don't need no, I don't have to, ain't nobody else doing it. I promise you, I don't have to tell you how I'm Black.
Mm-hmm.
If you can't look at my skin and look at my work and not understand how important I am to my culture and people, and we do this with all kids. We in Southeastern Michigan, we pull from 4 counties to be in our mentoring program. Oakland, Wayne, Macomb, and Washington. So kids are coming into the city that everybody say is so, right,
Mm-hmm.
to get this. From plush homes, beautiful homes, life, right? Because everyone needs mentoring.
Mm.
But if we don't value the mentoring, or we think that we can go someplace else, Black boys are last selected on mentoring lists. If you got your son on a waiting list to be mentored, guess who's last?
Mm.
So if you don't see the problem, how do you fix it, right? So Black boys 5 to 12, number one, we in this game to empower, to empathize, everything. We giving them all the works, literacy, everything. Like we're building. It
Mm-hmm.
took me 3 years to turn over my whole website to a suicide prevention website.
Mm.
Now, if you go to meworld.com right now, you pull it up, it's suicide prevention, suicide hotline there, smash suicide button. My children's book is tagged to it. Like, it's been a plan. It's not been something that's overnight, because 3 years ago is when I discovered Black boys were number one in suicide.
So is that so when you're speaking now of encourage me, I'm young, right? Then encourage me, I'm young. And the primary focus of encourage me, I'm young right now, or the primary initiative is suicide prevention in Black boys ages 5 to 12.
Yes. And I need you. And I need your fathers. And I need them men. And so we're cultivating good fathers only. Get the men to do more mentoring. Get involved, right? I need you at the table because of what you said earlier. It doesn't matter what kid come to you. This is who we are. This is what other people and cultures and things, they notice. Do we know how powerful we are? So you're going to open up the door to all children. You're not getting ready to hold one kid back or mistreat them. That's how powerful. When the isms get in the mix, that's what happens.
That's real.
That's real. When the isms get in the mix. So as a father from a broken home, my parents, mother, father was gospel pioneers. My mom used to help prostitutes. My dad is a gospel pioneer who also produced Oh Happy Day. That's a whole nother story coming.
Really? Your dad produced Oh Happy Day?
Yes, sir. Believe me when I tell you, that's a whole nother story coming.
Okay.
And, watching my dad co-wrote 10 songs for Motown and his life being, and when you see people direct a choir, that's where it come from. My dad was a trendsetter in choir directing, right? So my dad gave the world Oh Happy Day, Mattie Moss Clark, They Shall Be Mine. These are things, this is what the legacy that I come from. My mom used to help prostitutes. We had busing the whole night. So I didn't grow up not knowing. I started work at 8 years old on my own. I went and shoveled the snow, broke away from my brothers them to shovel snow to make my own money. In that process, I didn't value my successes. As I told my son, it wasn't until many years later where I had to lose everything. In the midst of this journey, everything, a family, a marriage, a direction, I was down to zero. One of my fathers opened up his home and let me stay in a room. I had a blanket and a window. And I looked out the window and I said, God, you got my full attention. I come up from here. I understand, because I was living, my words didn't match my deeds or my actions.
Man. Dude, there's a poem by Langston Hughes entitled Live Your Creed, right? It starts off with, I'd rather see a sermon than hear one any day. That's the first line. The last stanza of that poem states, for I may misunderstand you and the fine advice you give, but there's no misunderstanding how you act and how you live. It's all about live your creed, man. That's it. Now. But again, like I said, I'm the same way. It's just like we've all gone through challenges and trials and tribulations in which your words did not match your actions, right? Yep. But now it's all about walking in purpose. You mentioned the word integrity earlier, right? Yep. It's funny, like growing up, I grew up, I was born in 79. So I pretty much came of age in the 90s, right? So that was back, hip hop was big, and a lot of hip hop from New York, right? So you used to always hear the cats talking about word is bond, word is bond, word is bond. I never knew what they were talking about until somebody slowed it down and said, your word is your bond. They were using, obviously slowing, saying it cool or whatever. But what they're saying is your word is your bond, meaning your word is your bond. What did Scarface say? I got my word and I got my and I ain't busting them for nobody. Right. And so to that point, it's all about that level of integrity, but we've had to get to that place through trials, tribulations, bumps, but those bumps in the road give us the ability to empathize and connect with others who are dealing with the bumps in the road. Yep. So it's all a part of the plan, brother.
Yep. And so that's where it cultivates, it brings out the very best in you once you line up. So you don't have, as I told my son, because you don't lie, your spirit cannot be conflicted.
Mm.
When you say something,
Mm-hmm.
it's your first word.
Mm.
So when you speak, it automatically is your truth,
Mm.
because you don't have to pause and process to think, because you're not a liar.
Mm.
The first person you lie to is yourself when you tell a lie.
Absolutely.
And
Because you
so
know.
that because but that convolutes your spirit. So now you got to think about what you say, then you got to act what you pretending to be,
Mm.
and then when that wall comes down is another one, and then when that wall comes down is another one. And so a person can't really get to the authentic you.
Mm.
once
Layers.
you once you throw all that away and a person can get to authentic you, love begins to regurgitate.
Mm-hmm.
It is only in foolishness that it struggles for love to regurgitate,
Mm.
because it has to get through the foolishness.
Mm.
I
That's
it's
real.
it's real.
Mm.
So this is how we love our kids, right? And we're improving.
Mm-hmm.
So the fact that we're able to improve as an organization, even through the fathers and good fathers only, and like more men have jumped in the good fathers only man cave group, and I'm trying to, hey, here's a nonprofit, fly. What y'all want to do? I'm trying to get them to be more active and take on leadership. So we're getting ready to start a prayer group, a national prayer group through Good Fathers Only, where we're going to be getting on. One of my fathers is going to lead that, the whole nine, and we're going to be zooming and letting it happen. Let's go. You know what I
Mm.
mean? He said, I got an idea. I'd like to do it. The nonprofit is behind you. Let's go.
Let's
Same
go.
thing. Let's go. Same thing we're talking about nationally. If you're in another city, you want to get involved, let's go. You know what I mean? You don't have to reinvent. We just have a few things that we have to have in place in order for it to fly.
So speaking of that, I mean, let's jump straight into it. So if, folks, because, brothers listen from all over the country, all over the world, when you stop and you think about, encourage me, I'm young, and good fathers only, talk about where brothers can get information, what they'll find there, how they can get involved. Give us the full rundown on that, brother.
Okay, so you can go to EmiWorld, EMIYworld.com,
Mm-hmm.
right? And you can get to both websites from that one website.
Okay.
Um, Brothers can get involved by reaching out. If it's on fatherhood or if it's just on mentoring,
Mm-hmm.
they can do that, right? Everything is right there. If you want to get involved and help us smash suicide, click the smash suicide link and start a process. Everyone knows a little boy in their neighborhood that doesn't have the gift of encouragement in his life.
Mm.
Grown people literally come to buy the shirt, and somehow it touches them where it makes them feel a certain way. So it touches their childhood. So
Mm.
they wear the shirt. We get all kind of information about, I wore my shirt to speak. I wore my shirt and preached in it,
Mm.
right? Because I didn't get that encouragement as a child. And encouragement is for everyone.
Mm.
You see? So across the board, you can give the gift of encouragement to one of your brothers, one of your friends,
Mm.
one of your daughters, one of your nieces, the whole nine. Why? Because the message is, encourage me, I'm young. And part of that is you didn't get that. On the fatherhood side is, we're looking for just men that want to be impactful, collect resources, share the resources, and make sure other fathers have these tools, right? We do workshops. We can train you on that. Mentoring, we can train you on that. All of that is in place to mentor the Emmy way, as well as helping other fathers be better. So everything is intact for us. We just need more soldiers, more
Mm-hmm.
leaders who want to lead. Use the platform to speak, whatever. Come on, let's do it together. Because why? The only way I believe that this is going to shift for our community is healthy fatherhood.
Mm. The only way this is going to shift is through healthy fatherhood.
Healthy fatherhood.
And speaking of that, your journey, you mentioned the twists and turns. You mentioned, that your kids love me in spite of you. You know, you mentioned how those that you've coached, you've mentored, some have told you directly, but others have thanked you with their lives by how they live. You know, you talked about going from despair to leader. You talked about just all of these different components. But then you also talk about the creation of Emmy World, you know, Encourage Me, I'm Young, and The Good Fathers Only, but then also really, you know, focusing on the suicide prevention for young black men and young black boys from 5 to 12. How has all of this come full circle to impact you, Calvin Mann, as a black father?
Um, I would say that it has made me believe in myself, in a way that I didn't really understand. It
Mm,
has made me love myself,
mm,
where I had listened to the negativity of others and said it was impossible, and because people always equate shiny things with success,
whew, do they?
right? And for me, what this has done is it's not only healed my childhood, but it has spurred and grew my manhood.
Ooh,
It has,
Lord.
it has invited me, as the words say, to tables that I never thought I would sit at.
Hmm.
And so it has made room as I realized that the gift was what God had put in me, which was the encouragement.
Mm,
I gave others what no one ever gave me.
mm,
And so even in fatherhood, and Mike, if you saw me and my brothers, each one of my brothers, we all have relationships with men and other fathers that if we could get the people in one location with just my brothers, this ain't include my sisters. Now we
mm.
include my sisters, just my brothers alone, I'm quite sure it'll be up in the thousands.
Wow.
People love the man boys
Mm,
because of the perspective and the gifts that's innate in us, from music to laughter to fatherhood to to life.
mm.
People call us all the time. I was with my 16-year-old son yesterday. Then I said, "How many people call you, Cam?" He said, "Man, people call me all the time, Dad, for me to answer their situation."
Mm.
I said, "And you trying to figure out what you supposed to do, huh?"
Mm. It's already there,
It's already there, baby.
and it's our
It's,
job to pull it out.
it's our job to pull it out. You trying to be something else that what is natural to you, everyone is drawn to you for what you're already doing.
Brothers, ooh, pause on that. I mean, listen to what he's saying. You know, especially with our kids, but even with ourselves, a lot of times we run from our calling. We run from that thing that's staring us in the face. We run from that thing that we know we need to do. And again, we're all men. We understand the scenario of sometimes we got to bump our head. We got to go and experience it and realize, okay, yeah, that the stove is hot. Okay, I had to burn myself, right? I know that. You know, I have to do that at times, right?
Right.
But the reality is, make note of that thing that they're coming to you for, because you're searching for something that you done already found.
It's
You just
already
got to unwrap it. That's that gift, brother.
it's their gift, and you just gotta walk it down. And it's again, it's that's who I am. It's who I've been, and when it was manifested in the purpose, it's who I live, is what I live, and I really appreciate everything, man. I really appreciate this, and I honestly, Mike, I'm I really want to get us all in a room or all on a call, right? Yourself, Braswell,
Mm-hmm.
uh, Sean, right? And I want us to impart wisdom. Each person imparting there are 3, 4 keys of wisdom to being men, leaders, and fathers. I believe that would be a very powerful moment across the board on fatherhood and for men. And for me, it would just be incredible because you see people like yourself, Matt Prisbury.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So,
Yep. Out
man,
of Baltimore. Yep.
you see those people, and I'll be like, wow.
Mm.
I am blown away by how God reveals the gifts and have an appreciation for those people like yourself, the leaders, the men, and being a counsel.
Mm-hmm. That's it. There's a
Being
wisdom and multitude of counsel, brother.
yes, being
Mm-hmm.
a counsel, and do that thing.
Mm.
Like we run this fatherhood joint.
Come on.
You see what
Why?
I'm saying?
Look, don't ask why. Why not? There it is.
Right. Huh.
I'm
So
with it, man.
yeah, and so I would love, that's just a dream I had, and I would love to see it. And like I said, man, that's the only thing I really would ask. Other than that, anybody that want to get involved, I would love to have your voice at the table on this Smash Suicide campaign because it's another reason fatherhood should be speaking.
Absolutely. And to that point, there's a quote from Nelson Mandela that is powerful. I've used it in speaking engagements. I've actually built talks all around this. And the whole concept is this, or the quote is, fools multiply when wise men are silent. That's it.
That's it.
Fools multiply when wise men are silent. And you mentioned the suicide prevention. Our babies are lost when wise men are silent.
Yeah.
And so for some of us, we've been silent for too long. For others of us, we just need a bigger microphone. But for some of us, we've been silent for too long. It's time to speak up. It's time to not just speak up, but we think about integrity and living your creed and allowing your words and your actions to match.
Yep.
So make sure that you're backed up by your actions, right? The fruits of your labor, so to speak. But it's time. We don't have the time to sit around and wait on it anymore. Nobody's coming to save us.
Nope.
It's time to make it happen, brother.
That's daddy on.
That come on. So brother, man, as far as social media and connection, we got the website. So emmyworld.com. I'll have that in the show notes. What about social media? Is there any way for the brothers to connect with you on social media?
Good Fathers Only on Twitter.
Okay.
And at One Emmy on Twitter.
Okay.
Instagram, the Emmy Movement, and Good Fathers Only. We the same.
Okay.
Branded all the way across the board. And again, buy a shirt, give a shirt to someone who needs to be uplifted. I really see this campaign growing into, right? Because every time a shirt is sold, portion of the proceeds go into building our empowerment center. And the empowerment center, Mike, is just a place where we can help boys become men, become husbands, become fathers.
Now, is the empowerment center already there, or is it developed? No. Okay, not built yet, but not yet. But it's coming.
It's most definitely.
Well, we're gonna make that happen, brother. We want you to continue doing the good work, brother, and we're super proud of you, man. And keep sharing your story, keep doing the good work, because look, we not just the boys and the fathers, the world needs this. Because guess what? As we shine, everybody else, the world shines. So we all got to continue to do our part, man. So thank you so much for sharing your journey, your story. And like, I'm blessed to call you a friend of mine now. So we're going to keep this dialogue rolling, brother.
Yes, sir. I appreciate you, man.
Awesome. Now, fellas, make sure to follow Calvin Mann. Make sure to follow Good Fathers Only on Instagram and Twitter, as well as Encourage Me I'm Young on Instagram and Twitter. Visit Encourage Me, Emmy World, EMIY World.com. Connect with them. You can get all the information on, the Smash Suicide campaign, as well as a Good Fathers Only project. Make sure to grab some apparel. Again, like you mentioned, the apparel goes to the funding of the Empowerment Center, as well as funding the movements going forward. And so they're impacting the world. They've been sold all over the world, multiple countries, all over the states. I mean, just we just got to legitimately continue to support this brother because he's doing really good work, and there's going to be benefits that's going to impact us for generations to come. So fellas and ladies listening to, make sure to support Calvin Mann out of Detroit representing. All right. Now, as always, fellas, make sure to subscribe to Black Fathers Now via all your podcast listening apps. Make sure to leave ratings, share this thing out. But then also, man, make sure to let a brother know that you heard about this particular episode of Calvin Mann on Black Fathers Now. You've probably heard about him already, but if you didn't know beforehand, and now you know, let them know you heard about him on Black Fathers Now. That helps us as well. And so from now on, man, they all just continue to support, continue to share this thing out. We want every brother in America to have heard of Black Fathers Now and to have listened to at least one episode, because I'm confident if you listen to one episode, you're going to listen to all of them. So continue to share this thing out, because we're here pushing this movement, because we got to do our part. We got to change the narrative, and we're going to. So fellas, until next time, y'all be blessed, well, and wise, and I'll holler at you. Peace.